So welcome on in, guys. Three bold takes. This is the Week 7 overreactions. As you know, we have a special guest every single week for overreactions. And this week, it's one of my old buddies named Justin. Actually worked with him a long time ago. So, Justin, I appreciate you coming on, man. This should be a lot of fun. We have a lot of hot topics for you. So my overreaction is about a team that we have not talked about in quite some time. And that's simply because they've lost 3 now of their last 4 ball games. That's Colorado, right? It seems like once you start 3-0, everybody talks about you. Then you get steamrolled by Oregon. People quit talking about you for a little bit. And then you almost beat USC, and then you kind of come back a little bit. Then it takes and then you beat Arizona State. But then you get beat by the worst team in the Pac-12 in Stanford. They're not even one of the worst Pac-12 teams. They're one of the worst Power 5 teams in all of football. And you blow, get this, Colorado blew the largest halftime lead in Pac-12 history, the largest lead in Colorado history in the same game. So Deion Sanders, congratulations, you made history at Colorado for the wrong reasons. And that's why I say that Colorado is not making a bowl game. There's just no way. I mean, right now they have 4 wins, right? And granted, they won 1 ball game last year, so maybe even saying that they'd make a bowl game anyways is a little out there, right? But people were saying that this was an 8-9 win team, Chase, at Chase, and it's just simply not. And, you know, Colorado, it just... I need to stop before I say something that I regret. Colorado, I'm sick and tired of it, right? Congratulations, Deion Sanders. You made history for the wrong reasons. Colorado's a dumpster fire, and I think this is the last video that ever needs to be made about Colorado, if I'm being honest. They have UCLA, then they play Oregon State, then they have Arizona. They might beat Arizona. I'm not quite sure. Then they play Washington State, and then they finish with Utah. Quinn, you said this before. I think Utah is just going to beat the bejesus out of them. Utah cannot score any points, it seems like, but against Colorado they can. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's sad. It's sad. All the hype train's derailed and is now on fire. So, Chase, you can go right ahead if you want to. I know you want to. I see the wrinkles in the forehead. So I know you want to talk. Go for it.
I think the thing I'm going to emphasize again, if you watch any of the videos that I've talked in about Colorado, I've said that they are a 5 to 8 win team. And I think that is still possible. I think they could still end up around 7-ish wins. That's being hopeful with some of the last remaining games that they have. But I'm also I'm going to defend Colorado because I do believe in Colorado. I've believed in them since the offseason of what kind of team they are. They're not a national championship team. They're a bowl game team, which is significant for the way that they've played in the past decade of football, right? However, I did not watch this game, right? Actually, I did watch this game. I watched it until it was 29-0. And I said, click, I'm not staying up because that's the game and it's already 11 o'clock, right? Whatever time it was. I'm going to bed on a Friday night. And I wake up the next morning and it's overtime and they lose 46-43. Not only do you see that, you also see Shedeur Sanders posting his merch shop link on his Instagram story at halftime, up 29-0, right? Right. And we've seen this before, and that's mainly in the pros, but I can't excuse that. And right. And we can harp on Shedeur. We can harp on him, right? I'm not going to. I'm going to harp on Deion because your team moves as your captain moves. And if you're the way coach is, and I love it. He's very out there. He's very flashy. He gets all the people to like talk about him, right? And it's great for the program because this brought significant change to that program on social media, money-wise, everything. However, his team follows suit. And they all think that they are millionaires, billionaires in professional football already without playing a snap there. And they've lost a bunch of these games because their hype has gotten too real. And Shedeur posting that the other night has just been something that just didn't sit right with me. The things that haven't sat right with me is him showing the watch in people's faces or to the crowd and stuff. And And you can't do that, man. Be humble a little bit, just a little bit, because you're a good team, but you're not a great team. And doing that at halftime to a team that was 1-4, and then you gave them a win. That's just a lot of that's on the defense, but also that's on the offense for not finishing that game out. And so for Dion, you're looking at the team's following suit to you, and that's your problem now. You've created a monster out of it because you want everybody to believe the hype and who you are as a coach and for your team as well. And now you've derailed that team because that hype has become uncontrollable. So, Quinn?
So for me, I want to start with I think if you're Colorado, I don't think you're moving off Dion anytime soon. I'm gonna lead with that. He's brought a lot of like eyes, recruits, all that stuff to Colorado. Like that is still going to come in the offseason. I don't think that part of the hype train is going to die really, no matter what their record is, frankly. Um, you look at their remaining games: UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, Washington State, and Utah. The question of will they? Oh, let me address Stanford. That's a tough look. That's a year one loss. You can't have that loss. But most, not all, but most year one programs have a game like that. That was their game. That's my take on the Stanford loss. We can talk about the stuff that they did and how it doesn't sit right. But from a perspective of the trajectory of their team, that stuff happens all the time to year one teams. It's a tough loss you don't want to have because I think the most important thing for their hype is to make a bowl game this year. I think that is the most important thing. They need 2 wins on that schedule. I say immediately take Utah off. They're not going to beat Utah, and take Oregon State off. They're not going to beat Oregon State. I don't even for a second entertain the idea because when they get beat on the line of scrimmage badly, they fold. Frankly, if Nebraska's offense wasn't absolute trash, they might lose the game to Nebraska because their offense struggled for a while getting going with that defense from Nebraska. Now it changed once they were making a lot of defense turnovers and got momentum and then ended up blowing them out. But as far as them making a bowl game, I think it's possible. I think they could hang in games just like they did with USC. I think USC is a much better team than Colorado. They hung in the game because they were able to not get absolutely destroyed on the line of scrimmage. Washington State and Arizona, for me, kind of fit in that description where they can hang in those games and very easily win either one. UCLA, the only reason I put UCLA in a winnable position is they are on bye, and then they get UCLA. And Chip Kelly, UCLA, is pretty famous for just losing random games. So I think that could happen strictly based on precedent from the past and the fact that I don't think, to the degree that Oregon State and Utah will control the line of scrimmage on Colorado, I'm not sold on UCLA. I think UCLA's defense will be a problem for them, though.
But before Justin goes, I'm so sorry. I think if they win at least 6 games, I think they stick them in a bowl game because of the hype that's going to build around it and the amount of people that are going to watch it and everything. So at least 6 games, I think they make a bowl game. So because typically under 6, you don't make one regardless. But at least 6, it's a 50-50 shot. I think they put them in somewhere.
Real quick, the reason that Stanford loss hurts is if you have that, you only need to win one of those 3 winnable games. Now you got to win 2.
Right. Justin?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the if they get to 6, they just put them in the bowl game simply because of the rating. Because I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if they end up going 5-7 and network just bends the rules just to get them on TV. Because if they're on TV in a bowl game, you know you're getting insane ratings when they're on TV. Everybody watches them. But to harp on what Freddie was saying, that Stanford loss is so brutal. It's so brutal. Stanford is 127th in strength of schedule. And Colorado is 126, just to give you an idea of how bad Stanford is. Okay? Also, like if you look, there is a big problem with what Dion is doing. He has let this leash get way too long for his team. They are the most undisciplined team in football. If you look here, they're the most penalized team in the nation. I was telling Freddie and Quinn this before we start. They average double-digit penalties per game, more than anybody in the country. And also, I noticed something going back and watching this because, like you said, by the time this game was interesting, I was already asleep. So I had to go back and YouTube to watch clips of it. But watching this, Travis, they've got to figure something out with Travis Hunter, man, because this is not going to work. He played 157 snaps Friday after coming off a lacerated liver injury. Are you kidding me? 157 snaps. And I watched in the first, they targeted him in the first half, and they only completed, I think, like one or two passes against him for no touchdowns. And then, he goes out on offense and just has an incredible game, over 100 something yards again out through the air. But in the second half, when they realized he was tired, in the second half and overtime, Stanford was 10 of 13 for 2 touchdowns when they went after Travis Hunter. And I think that's part of the problem is you got to pick a side. Either make him play defense or make him play offense. Or if you want him to play both sides of the ball, have some statistic guy figure out when the biggest parts of the game are coming and then put him in those situations. Because 157 snaps is not going to work whenever you get up against Washington State and when you get up against UCLA. These teams that run a ton of plays on offense, it's not going to work. Because he's the best player on both sides of the ball. And then it's just not going to work. And I just, like I said, I just think that's, but also on the other hand, it's, you have to look at it both ways. No matter what happens the rest of the year, it's a huge win for Colorado based off what they did last year. They went 1-11. They were getting beat by an average of 26 points a game last year. They've already done tenfold times better than what they did last year. But also, you cannot lose a 29-point lead against anybody. That's so embarrassing. That's so brutal. It's so brutal.
Yeah. I want to call this to an attention too, and this is something that I'm seeing, and you guys have kind of already hit on it. Deion thinks he's above college football. Shedeur Sanders thinks he's above college football. Like he is better than college football. And that's part of the problem. I didn't like Baker Mayfield when he was in Oklahoma because of some of the stuff he did that was like this. Johnny Manziel was very similar. And you get these villains, right? Everybody loves a good villain in a story, right? But what happens to the villain at the end? They get beat. That's just how it is. That's the story of almost every movie that's ever been extremely popular and made millions and millions and millions of dollars. Now, Deion, I like his swagger, right? I like his confidence, but I don't like the pridefulness. There's a difference in being confident and being cocky and prideful. Because, honestly, it would be totally different if Deion has already won a national championship as a coach, has already had super uber success in the Power Five. He doesn't. And that's, I think, is what irks a lot of people's nerves. Not necessarily mine in particular, because he's always been like this his entire career. But I think you have to respect the sport that you're in as well. And I just don't think he does. I think he's better. I think he believes he's better than college football. Honestly, bigger and better than Colorado. Now, that's a hot take in and of itself because he believes he is Colorado. And at a certain point, he is Colorado. However, Colorado was there before him, and Colorado will be there after Deion as well. So, Chase, whoever it was that mentioned that you follow your leader, and that's exactly what's happened with this team. Undisciplined. It's not what college football was meant to be, in my opinion. Having people that is bigger than a certain team. That's
I'll
what the
say
pros
this.
are for.
I'll say this. I don't think that's 100% necessarily true. As far as it doesn't work, if you go back and observe the atmosphere and mentality around mid 2000s USC, or you look at 90s and early 2000s Miami, those are examples of cocky villains who dominated the sport. Now, I'm not saying Colorado is going to dominate it, no, but I do think, and I want to see what y'all think about this, I think the recruiting is going to increase. this offseason for Colorado, irregardless of how their season ends. I think the hype's not dead after 1 year. They're going to the Big 12, who is losing Texas and Oklahoma. So who's your top contender in that conference? Probably Utah. Like, that's the peak. The question is, do you think they can attract good enough talent on the offensive and defensive line to compete with most of, if not all of, the Big 12? Because your top teams are going to be what? Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Utah, maybe Texas Tech or Baylor.
I want to mention something to what you said about comparing this team to like the Miamis and the Texas and the USCs that played the villain and won. They backed it up. They didn't start becoming the villain until they were winning. They weren't like the villain and then started winning. They had proved themselves, and then they were like, okay, we're the bad boys. We're the U. We're this and that after the success. Yeah. I think that's the difference. You have to earn that right, and Colorado and Deion has not earned that right in college football.
I also want to correct myself. Earlier I said strength of schedule. I meant opponent. Stanford gives up 36 points a game, which is 127th in the country, which just makes the loss even worse because, like I said, Colorado is 126, which is 1 point above them. So that's what I meant to say. But yeah, it's so brutal.
So Chase, or Quinn rather, what was that last question?
Like, do you think they can increase their recruiting on the offensive and defensive line this offseason? Paired with, they have edge talent. And to talk on the corner receiver thing, 100% need to put Travis Hunter as a corner with specialty packages as receiver. It's so much harder to find a corner as good as him than it is to find a receiver.
Yeah.
Can that skill talent, if they improve on the offensive and defensive line, this season, will they make a bowl? Who knows? Next season in the Big 12, though, do you think they can compete at the highest end with the offensive and defensive line recruiting? If this is year one, and this team was really, really bad for years. So this is kind of year one of a complete rebuild that they used NIL to start.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to make probably a blasphemous statement here. I think what you're going to see is a trajectory a lot like Saban's. You got to remember, Saban's first year was 7-6, and it lost in the bowl game to Utah. I believe it was it UL Monroe? It was one of those two.
They lost to Louisiana Monroe in the regular season that year.
Okay, that's all. Thank you, Justin. And what I'm saying is I'm not saying Sanders is going to be Saban. I'm not saying he's going to win championships. What I'm saying is this is going to be a floor, I think, for years to come for him, and he's only going to get better. And I think you're going to have, definitely with the transfer portal, they brought in 86 new players, I think, this season, 86. Yeah. And you had to put those guys in and filter other guys out and yada ding, whatever, bada bing, bada boom. Right. And so I think they're going to add even more guys because now you're saying, okay, Colorado can win games. It wasn't a bust of a season where they went 1-11 again after all this hype. They won 6 games. They won 7 games. I'm a 5-star tackle that's not making it at Georgia. I'm going to go be that guy over there. Right. I'm going to make that move, and they're going to do it. They're going to keep going to Sanders. His transfer portal is only going to get better. And then his actual recruiting for Power 5 is only going to get better. And I think he's going to be, he might not win 11 games the next year, but I think he's going to go to 8 games and then 9. He'll keep building up a lot like Saban has. That's why I make that comparison. He's not going to be the same coach, but his year one is going to be probably his lowest in his career is what I'm thinking.
Because if he goes 6-6 and then wins a bowl game and finishes 7-6, that's an identical season to what Saban had in his first year.
Right. Yeah. And again, like Saban, he got better. Of course, he won national championships within the first 3 years. That's not going to be Sanders. I don't think he's going to win a national championship at Colorado. I see him leaving in 4 or 5 years from Colorado. But I do think that he's only going to get better because his recruiting is going to get better and people are going to want to be a part of what Sanders is building. He's also bringing in an elite coaching staff under the radar. People aren't noticing that. His OC is a former college head coach at Kent State. He brought in a head coach to be OC. Like, he's doing a good job. He just has to lead a little bit better. He's got to lead from the front a little bit more in what he's doing. So I think he's only going to get better. So, yeah, I think he's going to compete very well in the Big 12.
I think he will too. Guys, thanks for watching. That's been our Week 7 overreactions. I appreciate you joining. Justin, thanks for coming on the show. You've been great. Hopefully we can have you back maybe during bowl season. Guys, thanks for watching and listening. It's been 3 Bold Takes. I'm Freddie. I've been joined with Chase and Quinn. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share to your friends, and we will see you guys with a lot of videos this week.